Cynicism is just another form of cowardice. For our sergeant are not interested in a midlife crisis. We were to do our freaking work.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of the Spotlight Podcast, Success Stories for Veterans, where it is our job to break down and analyze titans from both the military and civilian communities to discover their tactics, their mindset, and their systems so that you can apply them to your life and ultimately to your transition. Those titans range from New York Times bestselling authors to former heads of state to other divergent thinkers who are out there dominating their field by challenging conventional wisdom. And today we're interviewing Eric Mitchell. Now, Eric got his start as an infantryman in the Marines back in 1994. And after getting out, Eric, like many of us, bounced around jobs before he ultimately had an epiphany about his direction in life. And now Eric is the chairman of the board for LifeFlip Media, where he does a lot of things. But one of those is he helps professional athletes develop their brands, which is a very exciting opportunity. So how does Eric do it? Listen and find out. Eric, thank you for joining us, sir. So for the people who are listening to this that might not know you, could you just give me a brief rundown of who you are, what you do?
I am Eric Mitchell. I'm a Libra. Oh, wrong. This is the wrong show. Dang, this happens all the time. I end up thinking I'm on a dating show. After 16 years of marriage,
Yes.
I run with that one still.
Yeah.
I am Eric Mitchell. I am the chairman of the board for LifeFlip Media. We are a full-service talent and athlete agency. We work with celebrities, high-level business influencers, and I think I said athletes, pro athletes, and help them get placed in media, work with their brands. So we work with folks like Nike, Adidas, Reebok, you name it. We work with them. So we help secure those deals, help them with their contracts when it deals with working with the teams, the leagues, help them. You name it, we do it. We used to be known for being a PR firm. So we do place our clients a lot in the media still. But making this big pivot to working with athletes and their branding, it's a huge thing to do. And prior to that, I was a United States Marine. Well, I worked in tech, but my background to qualify me as a military person means I was in 0311 in the United States Marine Corps way back. I enlisted in 1994 and spent several years in the beloved Marine Corps.
Outstanding. So to talk to me, so you're obviously doing big things now. You're doing a lot of very interesting things from my perspective. But talk to me about that process a little bit of when you got out of the Marine Corps to where you are now. What did that transition process look like for you?
Great question. I want to say transition hasn't changed. It's still awful, just like it was beforehand, like it is currently for all of our post 9/11 guys and gals. It was awful getting out. I didn't take it serious, which is probably my age would probably have something to do with it. I just wanted out. I loved my time in the Corps, but I also I knew I wasn't going to go in as a lifer. I was like, I did my time and got out and loved every minute of being a Marine. I didn't take my transition training serious. I mean, I don't think a lot of people in their early 20s do. I liked alcohol and women. I was really good at that. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do, right? And I think that's a problem with transition. They didn't even guide you on that. It was basically, you're in the infantry, you're in law enforcement, right? You play with guns all day anyways, might as well go play with guns again. And I ended up going into law enforcement. That's kind of my breakdown, but I ended up hurting myself while I was in law enforcement and decided that wasn't the journey I wanted to be because I wasn't meant to be a desk jockey. And if I was going to be a desk jockey, I was going to go and be somewhere else. So I kind of had this lost. I spent a better part of the first 3 years after transitioning out, I would say kind of like as a nomad, like just roaming around. Yeah, I mean, this is the late 90s, early turn of the decade or whatever they call it, century, whatever it was. Turn of the century. So it makes me sound old when I say it.
Turn of the century, turn of millennium kind of sounds edgy, yeah.
Millennium, yeah. We'll go with millennium. Then I want to sing a Will Smith song. Yeah. But all of a sudden, I always have some pop culture reference in my life. But, basically walking around lost, like not really knowing what I wanted and trying to figure out where my calling was. Because there's a lot of yourself as I was a young father. My oldest daughter's 23. I was a young father, kind of finding my way and didn't know. I just knew I needed to make money, right? Because that's the thing you're taught in life, no matter who you are. No, you don't make a lot of money when you're in the military. None of us signed for that. And when you're out there, you're just looking to make money. I mean, that's your goal when you're out in the real world. You're like, I need to pay rent. I'm not used to doing that. I need to get food. And I'm not just feeding myself, I'm feeding my young daughter. I was a young divorced father. And, as a single dad who had my daughter almost, 80% of the time, my ex-wife was whatever, I had to provide, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do. And people tried and said, oh, you be good at this and you be good at that. Trust me, if it is a bad get-rich-quick job, I think I probably tried to do it. Like, I've been in those, go to those offices where they don't have any furniture. There's like one desk
and a
then
telephone.
there's a dude in this office. Yeah. And they all get in this circle. I'll never forget, true story. It was like the first time I went to go do this job, whatever it was. I don't know. I showed up. They're like, we'll hire you. And of course I was dumb. I made the just dumb. And I walked in there and they got in this circle and they started clapping and playing music. And I was like, oh, I'm out of here. I popped smoke and was out of there. And like, they didn't even know. I was like, I got to hit the head. And I was gone. Like, woo, Eric Dini. I was gone. Like Houdini. They called me. They're like, where'd you go? I'm like, my house is on fire.
We're like, sorry.
Anything.
I wanted to avoid the seance. Yeah.
I did not sign up for this Mickey Mouse stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my first several years is just being lost, driven by the wrong things. I mean, I think we're all driven by money. It's how we provide for our families, but driven for the wrong reasons to have money,
Certainly.
right? Like just trying to get rich quick and understanding it takes a lot of hard work to get to the point where you get later on in life. The difference between 28-year-old Eric and 44-year-old Eric is a lot of failure, a lot of learning, a lot of long nights, and a lot of second jobs where I lost a lot of sleep because, trust me, I ended up working as a longshoreman on a dock at night. It's a whole new world. Yeah, you're working hard.
And so when you were in that situation where you're in nomad mode, you're like, okay, I gotta do something different. At some point, something flipped where you're like, I'm not gonna be law enforcement. I'm not gonna be a longshoreman. I'm not gonna work nights. I gotta do something different. What was that? Was there a moment? What did that look like?
I kind of put a goal together where I wanted to work. I knew I wanted to be in tech. I've always loved technology. It's kind of been my hidden passion. My biological father was the guy I remember growing up. He was building computers, and the younger folks listening are probably going to laugh. But back in the day, we had these gigantic computers that you see in the old 80s movies. Well, I fit that generation. And my dad built computers from Radio Shack. I remember this growing up. So I always kind of liked that side, but I wasn't like the guy who could build stuff. Obviously, they put me in the infantry. Point go that way, and that's where Eric goes. But I really love tech, and I love talking. And I applied for a job. A friend of mine told me, hey, dude, there's this company. You could go there. You're going to love it. All you have to do is pick up the phone and email people, and you're scheduling appointments for salespeople. And I said, sure, bro. And I didn't know he was getting like $500 for just referring people. Whatever. I went and I fell in love with it. I don't know if it was the fact that I had my own desk and kind of my own, I was so proud of my little cubicle. I was the proudest cubicle guy ever. And I loved it. I just had to make phone calls and I was good at what I was doing. I could book appointments. We had a great product. This is early, this is right after post 9/11, 2 years after. Just loved it. Just amazing company. I mean, I got food. I mean, there was breakfast served every morning. They always brought in lunch. I could have as much coffee, soda, tea, bagels, candy, snacks, bars. I mean, come on. It was like the grunt's ultimate life. And I got paid ridiculous. Yeah. And the salespeople would bring me this is early in Amazon, but they bring me Amazon gift cards, $500 Amazon gift cards. And those things went a long way when you're a single dad. I'm buying stuff for my daughter. I'm buying Jordans online. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I was making, I was making money, living on my own. It was my daughter and I had a nice apartment. I lived down the street from work. So it was that just kind of not sheer luck, but taking a chance at something that was outside of my realm that I never thought about and sitting there doing it. And it actually set my career spinning in a positive way where I could stop having to be on the docks, stop having to bump my head and work myself to almost death to the point where you're ill to now spin it to where I am today. And it started there. That's the exact location it happened, was taking that chance.
What was the most valuable takeaway? Because I hear a lot of veterans when I'm having conversations, and particularly ambitious veterans, they want to do something big. They want to do something awesome. They don't want to get stuck, and they feel like they're stuck, kind of like a nomad scenario like you were talking about. Yeah. But they actively avoid sales. What revelations did you have about sales in that role when you moved into that new world?
I love sales, and I'm going to quote one of my mentors who I absolutely love. And he's the one that I actually credit for a lot of my success today. His name's Jason Limpkin. If you look him up, serial entrepreneur, he's been acquired. He's got about 5 or 6 businesses acquired. He's currently a VC in the Silicon Valley, but he was the founder of EchoSign, which was acquired by Adobe. I was employee number 9. Great experience. Jason loves hiring veterans for sales. Why? Because we work hard. And 2, we are determined and we're driven. And we love the fact that all we have to do is tell people we believe in what we believe in. Because generally, a great thing about veterans, this is why I don't know why more vets don't sell, is when we believe in it. And I think this is the key. Let's back up a step here. You have to believe in what you're doing. What I was selling at the present time was electronic signature, which is now, if you're laughing in 2020, going, well, everybody uses that.
Yeah.
I think before that, long ago, 20 years ago, 22 years ago, I could tell you I was on the phone with a very large Fortune 500 insurance company. And we're on a call with them. I'll never forget this as a brand new guy. And they told me, nobody will ever use electronic signature. This is one of those fluky things.
Yeah.
And I remember that. And I also remember 2 years later when they called us up and signed a $2.5 million deal with our company. I remember that day. But you have to keep in mind, so for me as a salesperson, it taught me how to overcome objections, how to get over fear. But it taught me how to believe in a product and believe in a team, and understanding sales is just a part of a team. Again, it's the backbone of almost every successful company is a great sales team and a great marketing team. Now I transitioned into marketing because I like the special ops feel to marketing, right? You get to get in the weeds, you get to figure out the algorithms, the people you're targeting, how you go do all the cool kind of stuff, and get into the PR side where you're writing articles, you're meeting with reporters, sharing what the company's doing, putting, the fish is really this big when it's really this big, the things that we do in media. But sales taught me how to. The reason why I'm successful talking to producers and editors and directors and all these folks and gigantic names in media is because I have no fear, because I took my training from the Marine Corps. And I remember a staff sergeant telling me that the only difference between a general and a PFC is his rank, because he puts his pants on the same way I do. Yep. I always put that in my head. It didn't matter who I was talking to. I remember Mark Zuckerberg walking into our office. This was before Facebook was anything, when Facebook was above a Chinese food restaurant in Palo Alto, right off of High in University in Palo Alto. That's where I was. I was off 666 High Street is where I was at. And I remember Mark Zuckerberg walking in, humble dude in a pair of shorts and a hoodie, looking like a dude who, like every other guy out there. I remember these small no-name companies I remember when Uber first walked into our offices as an idea. I remember these days because this is what I sat here and watched happen. And all these guys were the same. Now they're huge and people treat them like they're monsters, but I've had conversations with Mark Benioff. He's one of the biggest CEOs that I admire and I believe in, because he took an idea, put it in his garage, and now look at it. He's got buildings all over. I mean, he's got 4 skyscrapers in San Francisco alone. The dude is amazing, and he gives back. He was actually, if I credit him with anything, Mark Benioff, he actually was one of the first CEOs I saw put a focus on veterans, because he created VetForce, which he threw, it was only $1 million at the time. And I say only $1 million. I don't have $1 million. So it's a lot of money. He threw it out there and created it for us. It was like the first person to be like, you know what? Veterans need some help. They need this training. They're transitioning out. This is long before all these other organizations popped up and wanted you to wear their t-shirts and be happy, and coffee mugs and all this crap. VetForce was like, look, this is very simple. This is what we do, which I liked about it. And it was the first time we ever had somebody want to help veterans. So that's my big thing in sales, is it taught me how to talk and really understand everyone else, because a lot of my lingo was still very much Marine Corps infantry, right? Still telling those jokes. And sales felt really natural to me, because the sales kind of felt like a PG version of the Barracks. Like they would say stuff and I would be like, I was like, you guys aren't offensive at all. They're like, oh, we apologize for the language, Eric. I'm like, did you say something that was offensive? I missed it. So like, go back. What did you say? Did you say something bad? They told me, and I was like, aha, that was. It's offensive, guys. Wow, you guys are. I'm like, wow, you need to come hang out with me.
Yeah, I'd be like, don't see me. I'm gonna walk. If you guys are offensive, I'm gonna catch on fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm
when
good.
you were doing sales and you switched over into marketing, and obviously you're doing LifeFlip
Yep.
Media now. You're doing all these incredible marketing things.
Mhm.
Was there a different mindset you had to take? And if so, what are the differences or what are the similarities?
Well, the similarities is understanding. There's Seth Godin and Ted Rubin have both. I love both those guys. To be the, I heard them say this, and they both have sales backgrounds. The best marketers are former salespeople because we understand in reverse how bad it is to be a salesperson and you hate marketing. What does marketing do? How does marketing even do? You know what? So what? They send out a couple emails, a couple white papers. There you go. That's marketing. But it's not. But when you can put a perspective on it where you understand the mission, and that's what I did. I took the mission, right? Was able to think as a Marine, the mission. So what's the mission of marketing? The mission of marketing is to make it so the salespeople, his job is a little bit easier. So they can overcome those objections so they can sell the company and beat the competition. Our competition at the time was a rival electronic signature company that was based in Seattle. And we came up with a strategy. And I remember sitting in a strategy meeting, and I remember I was one of the people who said this idea. I was like, well, give them that and take all the rest of the land. And everybody looked at me and they're like, what are you talking about? And I said, as a marketing perspective, give up that hill. We take all the other hills. They only got one hill. We bombard that hill. We own that hill. We let them have something. So they take a little piece of land. But if you have all the land over, do you really care about that land? And everybody was like, that's an interesting way to look at it. And I was like, well, that's how my brain works. It's like, I don't care about one objective. If I have all the other objectives, I can target. Once you have all the others, you can target the one you don't have. It's easier when you own all the land. So starting that strategy with marketing, it got the salespeople involved. I was able to pull them aside, and I had that respect from them because they knew where I came from. So it's kind of like a Mustang officer, right? We all love our Mustang officers because they know they've been through the shit with us. So they're like, man, I've done this. I hated my butter, blah, blah, blah. I felt like I had that same kind of respect. The salespeople would come in. We would have that meeting. I mean, my vice president of sales had to talk to me as an equal. And even though he's the guy that hired me, now I was, running a marketing team, and he was talking to me, and I was giving him this strategy, but he was connecting where he would fight with the past person in marketing. I was able to say, hey, I know this is our goal. I know this is what you want. I was able to make them all happy. So they would go do their job and use our material instead of what I did when I got it, when I was sales guys, I ignored it. I was like, I'm going to do it my way. And then go develop my own emails and develop my own strategy and create our own email drip campaigns. I took what I had in the sales game. I sat down with salespeople and figured out how to craft something that actually worked, which I think was different. People don't want to communicate, but one thing that we learned in the military that we have to take advantage of is the fact that we're really good at communicating with each other and coming up with strategy and making sure that we have an attack plan that, my goal wasn't, my goal is always to bring home everybody alive. In a marketing sales aspect, it was everybody hit their quota. How are we going to be the most profitable company out there? Trust me, I was at this time of my life, I was so hooked on the fact that if I worked my butt off, we were successful, and I was in the Silicon Valley, I was making more than I've ever made in my life, and I was the happiest I've ever been because I was doing something I loved. I woke up, I eat, drank, and loved every minute of the job I had. It was the first time I felt like I was wrong when they gave me paychecks or bonuses. I was like, wow, you're giving this to me, and I felt like I didn't do much besides play around. Like draw on a whiteboard and go, okay, this is what we're going to do, and here's the funnel, and get into like Salesforce and play with funnels and understand, top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel. And as a marketer talking about how to, the hardest part, anybody who's out there who's a marketer or salesperson is going to agree with me, is when things get stuck in the funnel, right? At the middle point, because there's that bridging gap between marketing and sales, right? And it drives everybody nuts. Like sales sits at the table and they're done. They push the plate to there. And it's like the salesperson can't quite reach it. I was the guy with like, why don't we just push the plate a little bit closer to them like you would your kid? Like, oh, here you go. You can't reach that? Here you go. And you get it and it comes through. Why get those things stuck in the pipeline? So we focused on it. And I could tell you we went 24 straight months. Everybody hit quota. We had a 10-person sales team. And by the end of that time, we were acquired for just over $1 billion on a beautiful day with 20 employees. I can tell you it was one of the greatest days of my life, but it's because we worked hard and we accomplished the goal. Because every startup should have that plan. Even as a business owner today, I have it in my head. You should have an exit strategy. You should know what your ultimate goal is. So,
well, that's a pretty huge number too, because you're talking about over $1 million of revenue per employee. That's impressive.
mm-hmm.
That's impressive. So when I'm talking, and again, back to ambitious veterans. So we see, or at least I believe I see a lot of veterans struggling with sales and marketing for themselves, not only for the companies that they work for, but when they're going out and trying to find jobs. For example, I spoke to a veteran recently, brilliant individual, put out 250 resumes, got 2 responses back. When you hear that with all of your background and everything that you know, what does that say to you?
Spray and pray. That's the hardest thing. You're not narrowing down your search. He doesn't know what he wants. That's what that's instantly what pops into my head is you can't do that. There's an amazing, and I would encourage anybody to follow this veteran. I'm going to say his name when it comes to this, because he's doing an amazing job. He lost his job, unfortunately, during COVID. His name is Coca Sexton, Army veteran, former MP, kind of a legend at LinkedIn. And he has talked about his old strategy when looking for a job was that spray and pray mentality, right? Mm-hmm. Apply. Do you know what you want to do, or you just apply because you're hungry and I need a job? There's a big difference. You can go to a car dealership and get a job if you want that job. Yeah. Because if you're treating your job search professionally like you need to go flip a burger or say, hi, welcome to Toyota, I'm going to sell you a Tacoma, there's a big difference between that and finding a job that you want or you deserve. You know, hey, this is a job I want. You do research. You have to send that cover letter. You send less. It's quality over quantity, like everything in life. So anybody who's going through that, anybody who's listening, who's going through that transition struggle, remember, it's not spray and pray. You can't just sit here, and I'm going to pick on grunts because I am one. Think of it sending in a spec ops team and not sending in an infantry unit. You don't want to send a battalion in to just stomp all over the place. You got to send in, do it few, hit your target that you're looking for. Find companies that you want to work for. Yes. See what they have and send them stuff, and actually step up your game. Differentiate yourself from everyone else. And I'll say this over and over again. Pick up your cell phone turret horizontally, go to that button that says photo, move up one more to where it says video, and start talking and send videos with your cover letters to these people going, this is what I want to do. So they see your face and they hear you. You will be different from everybody else. It doesn't have to be a long video. You can tell your 30-second to 1 minute why per video. You will stick out in the crowd because you will take the extra step instead of spray and pray. Because I tell you, everybody I talk to, and I have friends that work in HR and recruiting for some of the largest firms in the country, and I worked with them when I worked at big companies. This is where they ended up. HR people always end up at these places. They don't ever go work for themselves. So they're going to have. They never do. My friends are like, I'm VP of whatever at some gigantic company. I'm like, dude, I remember when you were a turd as a recruiter. Now you're like a big dude in charge of like 500 recruiters.
Now but they I'm all the chief human officer. Thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They all are. Chief happiness officer. One of my friends just took that. I was like, really? That's your job now? And she's like, Eric. I'm like, I remember when you were the meanest salesperson on the planet. Now look at you running you're hiring people. You're the chief happiness officer. Yeah. And she's like, what? I'm like, I remember walking into your office and you watching Netflix. She's like, shut up. I'm like, anyways, but I love you, Brittany. But when it comes to this, I'm dead serious. Video, and I'm telling you, every vet I know, make video, do a video. Separate yourself from the crowd because we all send cover letters. They're boring. But if you make your cover letter with a video, they're going to watch it. Trust me. That's how we send pitches in media. If I send a video pitch, I'll always get a response. I mean, now I don't really have to do that, but I used to do it. Yeah. Now it's more texting and just, hey, Eric. But, you have to separate yourself from the field in that. And I'm telling anybody who's transitioning, looking for a job, this poor soul who's firing off all this stuff needs to sit down and go, okay, this is what I want to do. It's kind of like starting a business. You need a business plan and you need to actually write it out. It's the same thing with getting a job. It's strategy. All of us as veterans, we all know it doesn't matter what branch you served in. You have to have strategy involved in whatever you're doing. To move you from A to B isn't just turning up, even to walk out the door to go to the commissary when you were in the military, took a plan, right? You knew you had to go, you had to put on your boots. You knew if you were in uniform, you had to put your cover on. You had to go out, turn right, go down the street, turn. There was a mission, right? This is how you get there. Same thing with everything in Journey. paint by numbers. It's very simple. This is the job I need. This is what I'm going to do. Get a temporary job. Drive an Uber, Uber Eats. I mean, they're all out there. Go grab one of those while you search. Don't just sit there and starve. Give yourself something where you at least are making some income and find you want. Don't settle for a job you're going to be miserable in. And spraying and praying, is that all that's going to lead that to?
Absolutely. So when we're talking about differentiation, and I know that word gets put out there a lot. Some people think they understand it. Other people don't. When you talk about differentiate, could you elaborate on that for people that might not be familiar with that as a concept? And how I test if I'm actually differentiated?
Well, by doing a video, you will be in rare air by yourself. But it's coming up with your story, right? I know you're talking to a guy in the media who's going to talk about storytelling. Everybody has a story, but when you think about it, if I were to come up to you and I was to tell any of you, tell me the difference between Nike and Adidas, could you do it? Obviously, you recognize both brands.
Yes.
But they're both distinctly different.
Mm-hmm.
Distinctly different. I mean, Nike to me is a company built in the 1970s from two Army veterans. It started off as a small running company by a kid who's always believed that Oregon is his home, and he loved running. And he created this brand, and then he got lucky in 1985. An amazing athlete out of North Carolina changed everything for him. That's Nike's story. If you think about it, it started off with Prefontaine, and it worked its way to 1985 with a man who liked to stick his tongue out and one of the best dang basketball players ever to walk on a basketball court, Michael Jordan. Think about it. Nike was just a running company up until 1985. When Jordan's shoes got banned by the NBA and Nike sold $85 million worth of Michael Jordan 1 basketball shoes. That's how you differentiate yourself from saying they're just a shoe company. Is Nike just a shoe company? Now they're the largest apparel company in the world. It's just one example of many. When I use differentiate, I want people to be able to say, I'm Eric Mitchell, and this is what makes me different than the next guy in media as an agent. How do I differentiate myself? How do I separate myself from the crowd? What makes me different, why I deserve the job? And how you do that is very simple. Go research the company. Go do your due diligence and do your homework. Know the people who are most likely going to look at this job. See if you have connections to any of them, and then see what they like. And you're just like, okay, I see your company, Acme, whatever. You guys are really strong here. I loved the press piece that you guys just put out, or the article in Forbes that was just out last week. You start referencing, you're reading about them, you are completely different than Joe Blow, who's like, dude, I just want to work here. I like sales, or I like marketing, or I like social media. I like tweeting, so I would be great for this job.
Yeah. And when you talk about research, you mentioned something right there, and just looking things up online. I mean, even something as simple as that can have you highly differentiated. I agree. But when you're looking at from a sophisticated, like I want to go maybe move up into an executive level position, how would you recommend somebody who's looking to do those types of leaps to do their research and to do their due diligence beyond what you've already mentioned?
There's a great platform called LinkedIn. Probably one of the most powerful platforms that you could ever have if you're looking or trying to move up in the world, is going and using that platform, educating yourself on what's out there, knowing it'll mark who their competition is. And not only is LinkedIn so powerful, the reason I always say LinkedIn over everything is you get to see their connections, right? Who else are people looking at when they look at this one person? Because you can go in and you find the head of sales at a company, or head of marketing, chief marketing officer. Then you see all the people and you're like, okay, maybe I'm not going to target that chief marketing officer, because that's a big swing. Kind of like swinging for like Good Morning America when you first get on media. Good luck.
Yeah.
But you go find a director level. That's what I'm telling folks. Get a director level and befriend a director level person. Start connecting with them, going, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Would you have like 5 minutes to have a conversation? Like, first butter them up, tell them you love their company and you're like interested. 9 times out of 10, they're going to take you, because we all know when I say LinkedIn, half of people cringe when they think about what's in their emails. And the other half are really happy, because when you get a good message that's personalized, that comes to you, that you actually are looking for some help that could benefit that company, 98% of the time, people are going to respond to you, and they're going to help you. So use LinkedIn as your ultimate intel. It's going to tell you everything. You can learn about the company, you'll learn about their competitors, and you'll learn who works in the company. And you kind of go down the line and you start following them. I always say, send a connection request to each one of those people. Be like, hey, I'm interested in your company. I really love what you're doing. and go. And also Google a company. Set up a Google alert. If you have a list, what I did, this was a long time ago, but a long time ago when I thought I was going to not have an agency and go back to the workforce when I left EchoSign, when I was at Adobe, my goal was set up Google alerts, right? For 5 companies that I targeted. I remember, I think it's still set today in my old account, but you set those and you start learning about the company. And what are you doing? You're sharing their information. So when you're talking to these people or you send a request or you're on their LinkedIn, they see you on there. Trust me, they're paying attention. If you're liking their stuff, we all know who likes our content. We're smart. We're content people. It's a process that people do. It's hard. Yeah, that's what I had to do with media. It stinks having to follow people on Twitter and liking stuff that you really, maybe you like it or not, but you learn about the company. And there's 2 things that happen fast. One, you either like this company or you hate this company because you're like, they either put out a lot of good content and you're like, that's where I want to work, or you're like, you start narrow them off your list. So do that and you naturally select it out. And then you are easy peasy because when they pull the trigger and they're like, we're going to start hiring, you can actually write in things and do that video again, that intro video. Well, you know what's going on. You could be like, hey, I read this. I'm so impressed with what you guys are doing here. To see your growth quarter over quarter is outstanding. I was tracking it in this article. I've been following you for some time. Bop, bop, bop. They like that. They eat that up because then you stick out in a crowd and they're like, okay, we don't want this guy to be the box cutter. We want to we're going to give him a good starting place where he'll have growth because he clearly cares about the company.
Yeah. And for people that are maybe a little bit further along in the career, do you think that same process works?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's no place in the process where that doesn't work. I've talked to a 25-year Marine Corps lieutenant colonel. He wasn't a colonel for all 25 years, clearly, but 25 years of service. 25 years of service. You know, dude worked at the Pentagon, was going to these meetings where they smoked the mirrors and, only, the right people could be in there. And he left that job and went to a Fortune 500 company and he became employee XYZ and his boss was a millennial, which makes us laugh as guys in uniform.
I know.
When you're thinking this dude had this dude had an attaché. He had all these people. He had this big office. He was at the Pentagon. Everybody was calling him sir. And then he walks into this company and he's nobody. He's just Bob, right? He's like, this is Bob. And Bob for the last 25 years was a Marine. And what does that cause people to do? All of you out there are probably going, I know exactly what that feels like. That's all they know you as is this is a Marine. This is a soldier. This is a sailor. That's all they know us. And then they're going to ask you probably the follow-up question. How many people have you killed and where did you go? That's usually the follow-up questions that we all get. So.
Yes. And for people that are experiencing that, because I think that's a very important point, is that you have your own individual brand. And then there's the brand of veterans in general. And I think that's something that doesn't get discussed a lot, is the totality of the veteran brand. And you walk in with that. How do you recommend people leverage the veteran brand responsibly or to their advantage as opposed to some of the more negative aspects of the veteran brand?
Well, I would say that, I've told this to a lot of people, a lot of podcasts, a lot of TV shows. I say treat your veteran status like you would a side salad. It's not the main entree. It doesn't define you. Yes, you served. Congratulations. It's kind of like talking to one of us, right? How would I treat you if you came up and told me you served? We say, awesome. Where were you? Is how we would have our little great conversation, and then we would move on. Yes. It is not. Civilians don't care. Most of the people interviewing you, they clearly probably never served. They have no idea. They do not speak hard jargon. They do not understand why the Army and the Marine Corps sometimes will pick on each other. They don't understand the difference between Rangers and infantry. They don't understand. They don't know the significance of anything, right? They don't catch our humor. So don't go with it. Just say, this is what I did. I was in the military, and move on. This is what I did. Take your experience and put it into real world. Don't try to make your experience of this one time in Kuwait. No, nobody cares. They're not going to care. They don't want to hear a war story. They want to see your personality and what you know about the business. If you're coming straight from the military into there, you relate it to a real world, turn things into real world and have those experiences on hand. Know the company you're going to talk to and turn them real world. And the one thing I will say is this, kind of piggyback on this further, and this is going to be more to our senior enlisted and our officers. And it goes the same thing as talking about being a vet. nobody cares what rank you were. The PFC is the same as lieutenant colonel. He does not matter. When you get out, no one cares. Nobody. And I can tell you, I have interviewed people while working at a gigantic Fortune 500 company coming into work for me. I interviewed a major, and he looked at me, and I looked over at it, and I said, hey, I was in the Corps. And he was like, awesome. And I was like, oh, you're a major. Awesome. I said, I was enlisted. I just said it nonchalantly because to me, it was just like, I'd been out for a long time. I was now, in a management role at a big company where I had a team that was working for me. I was sitting in a room, and I watched this person struggle with having that inner fight where I'm a major. Why am I taking crap from this, from this enlisted guy? And I could tell he was uncomfortable with it. I said, you're going to work for me, and I'm going to be there. Is that going to be an issue? And he's like, no, but I could tell he was struggling with it because he kept relating to a combat experience, or he was a captain, or, I'm like, bro, like, I don't care. Like, I obviously wasn't a captain, but, actually, he would be a captain. Sorry, I have my rankings all messed up. But it was just funny to watch. So I tell people, that's how you have to do it. But don't walk around with this, like, don't walk in where you're wearing that imaginary, shirt that screams, I'm a veteran. Don't walk in with that. Like, you're already going to have that sniff about you anyways. We carry ourselves different. Let's just all face it. When we put on a suit or business attire and we walk into a building, just like we do when we put on our uniform, y'all know we lean back and strut. We look good in whatever we're in. When we're dressed up, we naturally carry ourselves. And trust me, they're going to put their eyes on your resume. They're going to see what we did. Don't make it a side salad. You wouldn't treat your steak like you treat your salad. You could you could eat like 3 things out of your salad and push it out of the way, and nobody's going to be like, oh, you should eat that. But you're going to eat the $120, filet mignon that's wrapped in bacon with freaking Oscar on top with the fresh lobster. You're going to eat that. You're going to eat the whole thing. So focus on that. Treat the other like a salad. Like, I was in. This is what I learned from being a sergeant or whatever rank you were. Don't even have to bring up your rank, saying, I learned this, but real world experience. I look forward to working with a team. I struggle. Talk about working as a team and the ability to work on your own. People like to hear that you want to be able to work with a team and you love working in a team environment. Because a lot that I've seen, people struggle with veterans because they think we're disgruntled, right? We're typecast as disgruntled. We all have PTSD. We're 5 seconds away from going out to our car and having a falling down moment when we're not. Yes. And that we have this chip on our shoulder that we're going to do it our way and only our way. And we don't work well with others. When in fact, we actually work. I remember dealing with this myself because they would come back and they're like, well, one of the questions the interviewer had, Eric, was, how would you work well with others? And I'm like, dude, I was in the infantry. That's all I know is how to work well with others. I die if I try to work on my own. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. Like, I love teamwork, but it's because people have laid down that road before us that we have to overcome. So don't make it veteran heavy. Your service will be discussed because they'll see it. They can't hide it, especially if you did more than 4 years. Yeah. They're going to know if most of your 30s you were in the sandbox. They're going to see. They're going to be like, you haven't been working. Where have you been? And then you talk about it, and then you just learn how your position looks. Kind of find whatever role you had in the military and see what it looks like to a civilian counterpart and kind of understand real world of that and return what you did in the military in a civilian kind of break it down Gumby style so they understand what you're saying instead of saying, well, I was in charge of a motor T where we up. No, break it down to when I was working in, if I was the manager, I was managing a team of 8, we made sure that we had KPIs or whatever, and take them down that journey. So they relate to it. Talk their language. Don't make them speak yours.
Yeah. That's a very important point. That's absolutely fantastic. And so let's switch for a second, just something a little bit more weird, a little bit more off the cuff, because, the career component to the transition is obviously out there, right? And a lot of people spend a lot of time talking about that. Talk to me about life in general. And I'd specifically like to know, what type of absurd or maybe weird things do you do or have in your life that you think just really add the spice for you that you wish more veterans knew about?
Ooh, for me, I am an avid reader. I don't think a lot of people understand. I read about a book to 2 books a week. I geek out on reading. I don't watch a lot of TV. I'm a geek for music and I'm a geek for reading. I don't know if that makes me weird. Oh, I do like musicals. I don't know if that makes me super, super weird, but I'm a huge fan of like Moulin Rouge and, those kind of things. I my brain is I always say I'm kind of like scattered all over the place when it comes to the world I work in. I mean, I work in media. So let's just face it, working in media is crazy. It changes hourly. It could change by the minute. It could change by the week. If you would have told me we would start off the week like we started this week compared to the start of last week, I would have laughed at you. But it's 2020, so we're in a whole new world. But I think my big thing is that I'm an avid reader that people don't really see that. They probably think I'm like anybody else, that I'm glued to my TV when I watch very little TV. I'm not in front of my TV except for like bedtime. My wife and I, our weird thing, and you're like, oh crap, what weird thing do you and your wife do? Our weird thing is we have been watching The Office basically from start to finish. We just continue to do that. I don't even know how many times we've watched it completely. I know the last count was over 50 times, complete entire everything of the show. And we just continue doing that every night. We put on an episode and we fall asleep to it. We do that every night. And that's what we watch at dinner time. That's kind of our TV. It's just noise in the background.
Yeah.
A lot of like TV viewing. So my weirdness is I love reading. I'm all about knowledge is power. I'll read a little bit of everything from Phil Jackson to, I recently was reading about Frederick Douglass because I had heard the name. Anytime I see something out there, I want to read it. I want to learn about it so I can understand it. It drives me nuts not to be able to understand something in a conversation. I've always kind of judged myself as somebody who's not that smart. And I know I've always been told, and I know in the military, they always tell you, don't be the smartest person in the room. And I've always kidded around that I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but knowledge is power. And for me, reading all the time keeps it so I can understand when people are having a discussion. So when I get in a conversation and people talk about James Baldwin, who I had no idea who he was, and I picked up his famous 2 letters that he wrote to his nephew during the 60s, during a very interesting time in our country, kind of what we're dealing with now. And read what he said. It's amazing how history repeats itself. I'm a history fiend, but reading about Frederick Douglass, reading, about, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but also grabbing the Beastie Boys book, right? I'm a music fiend, so I love the Beastie Boys. I mean, I'm looking at my reading list and it's like, oh my goodness, if people saw what I read, they would think I'm weird. Because, I mean, you can go from the Steve Jobs book to The White Donkey by Terminal Lance. I mean, my books are all everywhere, but I love every one of them. I love reading, and it's something that I do that people usually, when they go, what, you read? I don't know if like there's a person who looks like a reader, but I guess I don't look like one.
That's unfortunate, but no, I agree. Reading's fantastic. Music is fantastic. Are you looking for, when you're looking for things to read, is it really just curiosity based, or do you have a strategy there?
There's I used to. 5 years ago, I started a book a month as a challenge to myself. So I read 52 books in the first year. And then I was like, I like reading. And I started kind of whatever. It's funny. It's whatever I read about. Like if I see something in the news, like I read 8 papers a morning. That's how habit of a reader I am. I read 8 papers a morning, all before 6 a.m. And I read them and I'm like, well, I don't understand that. If I see a quote of something, like I saw James Baldwin quoted, so I picked it up. I read a story about Dr. Abram Kendi, who wrote the book, one of the top selling books of 2020 is How to Be an Anti-Racist. Well, I wanted to know about that. I never knew about that book, but I picked it up and I own it in my hand. Obviously, I have like James Madison's book, but there's no, I have like my book. I don't know. It's whatever comes into my head I want to read. I mean, I'll go on to Amazon and I have my membership and I'll pick a book and be like, that one. It's funny because their algorithm kind of plays it out there. So it could be about civil rights in our country. I love, it's just going to sound horrible, Bobby. I probably should have said this is my unique tick. I love murder stuff, like murder mysteries, murder, like how done it, like the way Netflix does them, like The People on the Stairs or Making of a Murderer, or like HBO recently had The Golden State Killer, right? I like that stuff. So to go deep dive into it, one of the ones, because I grew up in Florida, Ted Bundy, and I really didn't understand how Ted ticked. And I started picking up Ted Bundy books.
He's a nightmare.
Right?
He's very charismatic.
Yeah, like he's the cockiest killer you will ever read about. And then the 60s, I really got into learning about what went on in the 60s for James Baldwin. and then picking up Plagosi's book about, Helter Skelter and everything that went on with, Charles Manson and those crazies, right? Like such a crazy time in our country when those, Tate Bianca murders took place, reading about it, because I wasn't alive for it. So it's like, I'm thirsty for knowledge, and I want to be, I don't know if it's because I love talking. So I always want to be able to, people say you're a know-it-all, Eric. And I'm like, I can't help it. I read a lot of books. So when you say something and you're either not correct or I need to interject, I just can't be quiet.
I know.
Because I can just go say, well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, I want to correct people, or not always correct them, but be able to insert. Hey, if you know what you're talking about, you should be able to insert into the conversation.
Yes.
So, yeah. I mean, knowledge is power. I'll say that over and over again.
Yeah, I think it helps with persuasion too, what you're talking about, the ability, because you have a lot of different knowledge base to draw on when you do have those conversations, instead of being the person who points out at everybody else. It allows you to be a little bit more persuasive. Like, well, have you considered this?
Yep.
You should go read this.
Yep.
So let's talk, Wayne, we're running out of time. And again, I appreciate you coming on the show, but talk to me about what you're currently working on, because you just had some very exciting news. And I'd love to hear, from an inspirational perspective, to show to people that it's totally possible. What are you working on right now? What's coming down the pipeline?
Well, when COVID-19 struck, my youngest daughter came to me and was, Dad, you should create a show. Mind you, we run a successful agency. We're honestly, me taking on anything other than just being the CEO and kind of guiding the ship is where I had finally reached after, several years of running an amazing business, of doing it by myself. My wife and I, we have an amazing staff, an amazing team. So shout out to our team at LifeFlip Media. To be honest, and I tell this to every listener, anybody who asks me, I'll be brutally honest. I had it made pretty easy. I was just guiding the ship. I went from playing on the field to being a coach. The head coach of the team, kind of guiding them. And my daughter came to me and goes, why don't you create this show, Dad? And I said, well, what should we call it? And she's like, you're blunt. And I said, but nobody wants to, be blunt with Eric. That just sounds weird. She said, why don't we call
You might have missed a gold mine there, Eric. I don't know.
I don't know. It would be good with my love of cannabis, but I remember that a lot of my friends are pretty ultra conservative, and I didn't want to make it too. I just think that's over the top. I also thought about dropping E, but then that was just my snarky humor, tongue-in-cheek humor.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to watch a show about dropping E. So we came up with To the Point with Eric Mitchell. We started it and launched it April 15th of 2020 with Jeff Attila, the starting goalie for the Portland Timbers. Brooke Oldesham, who is the she's the sideline reporter for the Portland Trailblazers and a mentor to my daughter, and the great and wonderful Heather Monahan, one of the biggest female influencers out there in the space. And I had them on the show. And then we just went nuts. We started working we had a couple Sopranos on, and then this gentleman, Montel Williams, kind of came along and asked to come on our show, and it became like a regular. And then we just kind of took off, where we talked to everybody. We have a show 5 days a week, and just a matter of 48 hours ago, we were offered, and I accepted. We are on a network. So in less than 120 days, we took a show from a Facebook and YouTube platform to where we're going to be on a network where we're going to be able to reach over 44.5 million people a month, which to me is crazy. And we have primetime space. So we'll be on air across the country at 5 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday. And you'll see my mug every day, talking with guests every day about what's going on in the world. And a lot of it will be focused on entrepreneurship. But the thing, and to be brutally honest, and I want to make sure I talk about this on your show, the one thing I'm most proud of this show about is we feature two days I'm proud of. I'm proud of every day, number one, to be clear. But the two that I love is our Mondays are called Military Monday. And our Wednesdays are called Women Wednesday. Theory behind both of them, and I'll cover the first one because it's the most important. Nothing in my life makes me better than being able to give back to veterans. I absolutely love the veteran community. I love being able to help. My frustration in being in media I've always seen that the only time they want to talk to a veteran is for 1 week in November and probably 1 or 2 days in May, because for some reason these people think that Memorial Day is veterans oriented in any way. It's not at all. I wanted to be able to feature amazing veterans, business owners, or veterans in general doing amazing things. So we've already interviewed guys like Rich Cardona, Rod Rodriguez, the great Rudy Reyes, the amazing Kirsty Enos, Jaspin Booth has been on our show. Amazing, amazing vets where we talk about their successes and what they're doing. And I think that's something that I love that I'm going to be able to continue doing on a national level because nobody else does it. And I think it's great. Yeah. I'll carry the flag as the old timer and make sure our veteran business owners and our mill spouses and everybody else, people don't. Now, mind you, when I say military, I include our friends and first responders. And I've also opened it up to healthcare providers because I treat them the same way as I treat our brothers and sisters in arms. And then Women Wednesday, that's flat because my wife is the co-founder of our amazing company, LifeFlip Media. I'm a girl dad, so I have 2 daughters, and I want to make sure that they know that we can put amazing, empowered women. And we interview some of the most powerful, amazing women in the world come on our show, and we get to inspire others and see what they're doing. And we're teaching business owners, and we're putting powerful female women out there to do that. The other days are great. Don't get me wrong. To the point Tuesday, we talk about newsy stuff. Yeah. Thursday's Throwdown Thursday, so it's kind of a catch-all. And Fan Fridays where we have fun. I don't like it heavy. I like it to be where we're talking about fun stuff with, millennials and Gen Z. Really, my goal is for entrepreneurs to be able to come onto our show and learn something every show, to take away something and go, that's a person I don't have a connection with and I never knew. And I get to see them on my TV. I get to learn something from them, and maybe I can go use that as something to help me grow my business. Yeah. And we all learn it together because we're not competitors. And to stay on my soapbox for 2 seconds, the thing that drives me nuts, you got it. I'm going. The veteran community can either be good or bad. I've seen both sides of it. And what drives me nuts, and I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to name names. I don't do that. But the veteran community, what we need to stop doing is tearing each other down that are successful. That is not our job. When you own a veteran brand, why do you need to trash the guy who has the same kind of brand to you? Why don't you work together and go target guys like Starbucks? Yes. Why don't you go target a brand like Nike? Why do you need to tear each other down? We are veterans. We are here. Why are we hurting each other? We already lose 22 brothers and sisters a day. That's not going to change. We're trying our best. Why do we need to tear each other down? That's not what we need to do. Pick up the phone, get on LinkedIn. Instead of tearing somebody down because they're having success and you're not, maybe ask that person why they're successful instead of crapping on them. Yeah. Like, it drives me nuts when I look out in the space and I see people say something bad about myself or somebody who I look up to who's crushing it, and they may not be at the same level as we're at, but I see them and I'm like, man, you own LinkedIn. Your content is on point. Why is it then you turn around and you see, and then you get in a conversation with that person, that guy. I talked to him one time and he just blew me off. And I'm like, are you sure? Because I've been there and people are like, well, Eric didn't talk to me for more than 7 minutes. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have 25 people around me and I'm not rude. I don't just talk to one person. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's my soapbox. It's like, look, guys, we are the greatest community out there. America loves us. People want to see us succeed, but don't crap on somebody's success because all that does is, number one, it owns head in your space. So I'll leave you with this. This is my thing I tell every human being, and it goes for our vets mostly. Don't let people own space in your head that don't pay rent. So if somebody is doing good, be angry, cause that fire. Because I can tell you a quote from Mark Cuban that keeps me going every day of my life. Mark Cuban said, treat every day, every minute like somebody's out there trying to take everything you have. Somebody's training harder, working harder, building something better. I believe that every single day of my life. And I work hard to make sure that not only do I surround myself with amazing people that can help me keep my business alive so I don't have to depend on one stream, but I build partnerships all the way around me. And they're my competitors technically, but we lift each other up. Trust me, I work in media and I run a TV show, and the same people I compete against on an everyday basis putting their clients on TV, they send me their clients and they trust me to go on my show and know I'm not going to steal their clients from them. That speaks volumes to me. And I know if I could do it, every other vet out there, every other human out there, instead of being pissed off and angry at somebody's success, find out how they did it. And go get the same thing. Go get your seat at the table. Don't hate from across the room like you're 3 years old. Oh, they're sitting at the table. Go get your damn seat at the table and sit down. We'll welcome you.
Absolutely. Eric, phenomenal information. Thank you again for coming on the show. Very excited to see you on the networks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Spotlight Podcast. And I just wanted to take a second to ask you who you think should be interviewed on the show. Who do you think is out there that's just absolutely crushing it that the veteran population needs to hear from? That's what we want to hear from you. Send us your suggestions to spotlight@thezenveteran.com. That's SPOTLIGHT @thezenveteran.com. Thanks again for listening.